Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I want to revisit the Nintendo DSi. Now, it's a good console, don't get me wrong, but what did it bring to the DS lineup that was enough to pull people away from the DS and the DS Lite? Because the DS Lite is, in my opinion, probably Nintendo's best handheld. It was a pure gaming machine with battery life that was just absolutely insane. And when they brought out the DSi, obviously it could play DS games, so if you didn't have a DS or a DS Lite, you could go and get a DSi and play the whole catalogue of DS games. And spec-wise, it was great. It had twin built-in cameras, it had built-in storage, its processor was twice as fast, so you had a 133 megahertz processor and 16 meg of video RAM, versus the DS Lite, which had I think 4 meg of video RAM and only a 67 megahertz processor. Both devices have a 33 megahertz co-processor, and that sounds fantastic on paper. But if you put a DS game into a DSi, it reverts to DS mode and will play just at that 67 megahertz. So okay, so you plug in a DSi game, a game that is exclusive for the DSi. Yeah, I think there was only about 6 physical releases that were DSi exclusive, and most of those I think were in Japan. Then you've got DSiWare, because obviously with the DSi you had the DS shop and you could download games straight onto your DSi. So this is DSiWare. So I'm assuming that because these were exclusive to the DSi range, that maybe they took advantage of the additional processing power. But I got into the DSi very late, probably after the DS shop was shut, so I not got any experience of DSiWare. So what is the point of the DSi? If you're just after a console to play DS games, then you're better off getting a DS Lite, because the performance is going to be the same. It also has a built-in Game Boy Advance slot, which is something that we lost on the DSi. If you're just after DS games, then a DS Lite is probably your best option. Now I have to say, and this might sound like an odd thing to say, but my DSi XL is my favourite console. But it's not because it's a DSi, it's because it's an XL. I love the larger form factor, I love playing DS games on the larger screens, so that's why I use a DSi XL. I've got a DSi, it's a great console. I quite often use it for multiplayer when my son wants to play some sort of DS download, and it's a good console. Nintendo were intending on bringing out a DS Lite XL. It got to prototype stage but was never released. So the DSi XL, for its large form factor and massive screens, is amazing, and it's got an insane battery life that matches the DS Lite. But really, the DSi is just a glorified DS. It really didn't come with much of its own exclusive software. The additional features that you got, like the camera and things like the sound studio and maybe the DS shop, I just don't see it being a huge selling point. And the fact that there wasn't a huge amount of games for it, it kind of fell flat on its face. It was a glorified DS Lite with some extra bits to it. Like I said, I've covered this before in a previous video, and I've come to the same conclusion. If you want a DS for playing DS games, then buy a DS Lite, because it's what it is. You slap a cartridge in and it plays the games, and you've got amazing super bright screens. The screens on the DS Lite are insane, and you've got a battery life that, well, you can get 18-20 hours life out of a DS Lite playing games. And if you're a DS fan, that is what you want to do. You want to play games, and you've also got the advantage of the Game Boy Advance slot. If you want a DS with a larger screen, then your only option is a DSi XL, and that is a great console. You can't play Game Boy Advance cartridges on it, but it does have a larger form factor. It's much better for adult hands, and the screens on it are insane. I love playing all sorts of games on my DSi XL for that very reason. And it is one of those weird consoles. The DSi and the DSi XL, they brought some new features. They weren't really that wow and amazing. The exclusive game selection was almost non-existent. So buy a DS Lite or buy a DSi XL if you're after a bigger form factor. And then we get on to the topic of Homebrew. So there are some Homebrew titles for the DS and for the DSi, and there are a couple of titles that are DSi exclusive. So there is a Super Mario 64 port that was designed for the DSi. I don't have a huge amount of experience of DSi Homebrew. I don't actually think there's a huge amount of games available that were exclusively for the DSi. There's quite a few DS ports that you can run on a flash cart, or if you've got a DSi on custom firmware, and these are great, but they'll run on both. They'll run on a DS Lite and a DSi, so they're not going to take advantage of the extra processing power of the DSi. But like I say, there are a few Homebrew titles that do only run on a DSi or a DSi XL. Such as Super Mario 64. Yes, there is the DS version, the official version. As you've seen in my channel, I went through and looked at lots of different ports. So you've got the official N64 and the official DS version of Super Mario 64. Then there was an unofficial version for the DSi, an unofficial version for the 3DS, one for the PSP and one for the PS Vita. Does the DSi version take advantage of the extra processing power in the DSi and the extra video RAM? Because 4 meg to 16 meg is quite a jump in terms of video RAM. Does it take advantage of it? I'm gonna say yes, but with nothing to back it up with. Why make a port that is exclusive to the DSi if it doesn't run well on a DS? So twice the processing power, 4 times the video RAM, it must run better because it is a DSi exclusive. And I'm sure there are some other Homebrew titles that were released exclusively for the DSi for the very reason that the DSi has got more processing power, because there's a lot of 3DS games that were released on the 3DS, Homebrew titles I mean, which took advantage of the extra processing power in the 3DS. So if you know of any DSi games, DSi Homebrew games that run exclusively on a DSi, well, obviously you can run them on a 3DS because it's a jump up and not a jump down. And if you know of any DSi Homebrew titles that run exclusively on DSi hardware, then let me know. The only one that I do know of, and I haven't really looked into it much, is there's a port of Super Mario 64 DSi. Back to the original topic. What is the point of the DSi? It's a great console. If you don't have a DS, you could pick up a DSi. I mean, it's fun to have cameras and be able to play around with the sound. And if you bought it way back when, you did have the DS shop, which was sort of the infancy of online downloading games. But it needed to have more of its own stuff to pull people away, because people looked at it and they go, well, I've already got a DS Lite, I can play my DS games on that, there's nothing really that is exclusive to the DSi, so why do I need to buy them? And I think that's why the DSi didn't do as well. I mean, it's probably a big selling console, and the DSi XL really pushed, I think, the DSi numbers up, because people looked at that and went, that's a bigger console. I love that, and I do. Like I said, my DSi XL is my go-to console. I've got lots of other consoles, but I always pick up the DSi XL. So I think the XL side of it was probably what pushed the sales for the DSi, because a regular DSi, it's just a DS Lite with a few added bonuses and a few bits taken away, like the Game Boy Advance slot. So let me know what you think of the DSi and the DSi XL range. Is it a worthy console? I mean, the drop in battery life from the DS Lite is just one of the downsides of it. And like I say, if you're only interested in playing DS games, then grab a DS Lite. It's super robust and the screens are superb, and the battery life's insane on it. Or go for the DSi XL because it's got similar battery life to the DS Lite. DSi XL is my go-to console, and if I was looking for one to play DS and Game Boy Advance games, then I would definitely pick up a DS Lite. It's just super portable, slip it in your pocket kind of console. You find the DSi XL is a little chunkier, but there you go, DSi XL. What are your thoughts on it? What were your thoughts on it then, and what are your thoughts on it now that the whole DS, 3DS line is pretty much dead? If you were in the market to buy a DS, which model would you go for, and would you pick up a DSi version, or would you go for something else? Let me know what you think, but they're my thoughts on it. Increased processor, increased video RAM, pretty much pointless, even for the homebrew scene. There's not a huge amount out there. Like, subscribe, enjoy.